Everyone to another welcome everyone to another episode of Revenue Hacks. Today we are going to be chatting about guest communication. We try to face here the biggest challenge we do in our wonderful industry of hospitality. I've got two wonderful guests for me today, Vicky Miller from Allianz and Judith van der Heijden, if I correctly pronounced. That's taken a lot of practice for the last week, Judith, I tell you. But from the Rosewood London, Chief Concierge from the Rosewood London, I'm speechless to be able to get a few minutes away from your desk for you to be here with us, especially during Jubilee weekend in the UK. Welcome. I'd like very much a short introduction from both of you. Judith, if I could start with you, if I may.
Of course, absolutely. As you said, Judith van der Heijden, I'm originally Dutch, head concierge here at the Rosewood London. Been here for 9 years, grew up as from a junior concierge all the way to a chief, and have a beautiful team, and we're back in business. We're full, we're busy, we're crazy, but so happy to be here, and I'm so grateful to actually get an opportunity to speak to you both today about some really interesting topics, which are very close to my heart. So very nice to be here. Thank you.
No, we welcome you. Obviously, to pray any concierge away during such a busy weekend, or when you're facing, as you mentioned to us earlier, I think a straight 9 days from going on to Jubilee weekend and then night shifts as well. So we can only say thank you from our hearts. Vicky, a short introduction from you, please.
Well, thanks for having me. So if you're in the hospitality industry, there's a good chance I may have met you. I've been in the industry a long time. So I used to be concierge many, many moons ago, probably before even Judith was born. I'm really dating myself now. But for almost the last 2 decades, I've been in hospitality technology. So many of you may be familiar with a company called Go Concierge that started in Los Angeles in the year 2000. I joined them in 2003, was with the company for over 14 years as the director of training. And then with the acquisition by Alice, I was with Alice for almost 2 years, managing primarily the transition from one system to another. But I left and joined Allianz almost 3 years ago now. One of the exciting parts about that was just where we were going with technology and chat messaging and such. Part of what we're going to talk about today. But yeah, that was the big draw. But I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
No, very welcome. One of the key points I really want to discuss today, and I think everyone talks about the guest journey. Everyone about hospitality at the moment, every supplier or every group's about the guest journey. Anyone who's met me knows how dear the concierge teams are to me, but I think sometimes they have forgotten the level of communication that anyone in the concierge world does, pre, during, post. And to be fair, anytime the guest reaches out and they need something from that wonderful city, that wonderful property, or just the individual, we look at the different ways of communication as well. I remember from when my father was part of the concierge team was pen and paper. Nothing to do with technology. Then Go Concierge came knocking on the door. We all met the wonderful Vicky and Go Concierge. But Judith, I really want to take your take in a way how things have changed. Especially, everyone's been comparing post-COVID to 2019. I tried to get away from it because 2019 was 2019. We're now in 2022. I say that concierge has changed possibly as much as my 18-year-old, the way he communicates with me, which is non-verbal, via advice, and through various channels. You never know if it's going to be one or another. But that's a guess myself who's been out of the industry. I really like to take a take on how you're facing. You've seen the change, obviously. You've mentioned to us 9 years in the concierge world at Rosewood. Really would like to get your feedback on that, on how you're communicating with your guests, or how you're communicating with others and your guests, I guess, to get everything that you do on a day-to-day basis.
I mean, you're absolutely 100% right. I think we are facing a bit more of a technology, I guess, generation. I mean, we, of course, especially during the last 2 years, everybody got more attached to the technology and the ways of the communication, because we couldn't see each other. So we were reaching out to other platforms or trying to connect with the people around the world at this moment in time. So we all became a little bit more tech savvy and a little bit more quicker with everything. So when we eventually started to come back and build up the desk back up, really quickly we saw when people came back into the hotel that we like to do everything quite over emails because it's just really well organized. But you started to see that the language that was used and the way the emails were set up was more like they were texting us. So very quickly you see just a one-liner email, and it was just like, because they want to have a quick response. They don't have time to say, oh, dear Judith, thank you, which is obviously something that we still obviously do. But so you started to realize that technology became, it is not anymore so formal. So WhatsApp then became one thing with us as well. We started up the WhatsApp group, and you started to see that, you know, everybody goes on WhatsApp, but at the same time, they find us as well via Instagram. They find us via LinkedIn. They find us via other resources. So for them to quickly say, oh, let me just quickly see in with the concierge, see if they can do this, or send a link what they've seen on Instagram, because we're all very much about the influence these days, and it actually gives a lot of highlights to London. So for concierge, it's really important as well that we stay on top of Instagram. So why can't they just quickly reach out to us? So you start seeing that that's a very big need for us as concierge to open up those communication channels and say, okay, you can reach us anywhere you like. People are this, I call it new money. You can see that the younger generation has more and more, they're so much more accessible when it comes to luxury as well. They know what it is, they know what it means, and they know what they can get with their money. So they're very quick now to come into the luxury business as well, which is gorgeous to see, but it also means they don't want to have emails. They want to straight away either a person on the phone, or they want to quickly text me. And as a desk, you have to anticipate on that, and you have to accommodate that. So that's what you see now, very, very much so.
Excellent. Are you finding, are other departments within, let's say, Rosewood, London, for example, finding that as well? Because obviously in the past used to be your email confirmation via sent through as a guest, and that would be it. But I'm hearing, and Vicky mentioned to me recently, not just digital itineraries to confirmations to the request that Allianz clients are asking. It's now not just your A to B, I want theatre tickets for tonight, I want to go to Wimbledon, or get me that VIP pass to the Jubilee concert. It's now literally everything via short messages and DM messages.
Yeah, absolutely. They want everything now, and I want it today. Like if they're on the road and they're staying at the hotel, I want a gin and tonic, you know, and they want to have it in my room. And, you know, you straight away have to pick up on that message and be like, okay, let's dispatch it to the next person and make sure that that gets done, because, you know, it is such an open environment right now. So you see it across every department, to be honest, and there is no better way than actually have just everything in one go, like the development of apps, or, you know, everything is under one umbrella. You have your confirmation, digital itinerary, your quick chat function. Ideally, that's what you want within a hotel, and especially knowing where to go and who to speak. And if it's just one person, one chat, and I can speak with that person via any social media that I'm currently on, because, oh my God, I want my housekeeping, I want them to come in, or I want a glass of water, or it is just so easy to quickly do that. And that's also a level of luxury that you can do that.
Right, so on that point, Vicky, obviously you and I have spoken as friends. You obviously knew my father and the team you worked in very, very well. But the changes you've seen as a supplier to the industry, and the important level, as Judith mentioned, the level of integrations that are now needed to deliver that communication. How are you finding that as a supplier to the communication of the industry? What kind of challenges are you finding on that? And how are people, let's say, your prospects, your clients, and your network? To me, obviously, as you know, we both work together, but how are you finding that changing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, you know, I will say, again, one of the reasons I went to Alliance is because I think they have great vision. I think they saw this coming. Even before the pandemic, they were already targeting how they're going to have omni-chat messaging, how they're going to be able to escalate requests or make transfers. I think with the onset of the pandemic, it actually just, if anything, just kind of propelled that focus even more. So, you know, there's the concierge aspect, absolutely correct, with the digital itinerary, but through what Judith is saying is, because right now, you know, concierges are responding to all these instant messages over multiple channels. So what did Alliance do? They created an omni-channel chat messaging. So we can basically address about 12 different channels, all coming into one platform. So that makes it so much more efficient for the team themselves, because it doesn't matter if the guest is coming in over WhatsApp or Messenger or, you know, even like Google Chat. it's all going to come into one place. And that makes it so much easier for the hotel to manage, but then also to forward it to another department. So then those departments can respond as well. But, I think very, very smart in the approach. I think one of the things that also kind of came out of the pandemic, and we never want to take the human element out of this, there's always a human on the other side of that platform who is responsive, because it's the human that brings in the hospitable, right, of the part of hospitality. But it's just about giving the teams at the hotels the tools to communicate and meet the guests on their terms. And that's what this is all about, isn't it? The guests are setting the terms, saying, this is how I want to communicate. I want to communicate with you over WhatsApp. Or some guests maybe don't want too much interaction. So having things like a full mobile app, and we talk about guest journey, that the fact that they can check in, they can put in their credit card, they can download their mobile key right on their phone, they can see their daily invoice, and they can check out. And all the activities that they're asking the concierge, they can chat. Concierge, like Judith, is still going to maintain all that. She's still going to come back and ask questions about the spa. It's like, okay, great. Do you want 60 minutes? Do you want 90 minutes? Do you want male, female therapist? So that part is still going to remain. But it's about then being able to put all those activities in and then automatically appear in the digital itinerary. And the fact that it's instantaneous. So any changes happen immediately. I'm from the old school where, okay, it wasn't old school. I mean, I'm old school where we had the red leather logbooks, okay? But even with Go Concierge, it was fabulous because we were able to create these, these lovely itineraries. But in the end, they were PDF documents. And we know, right, at Custódio, we know guests change their minds all the time. You don't want to inundate the guests with 5 different itineraries, and then they lose track as to which one's the most recent. So having something like a live itinerary that automatically updates as Judith makes the changes, it automatically appears for the guest. That's the future.
I think one of the things we've seen, and I was told by a concierge in Portugal recently, is the dynamic element of the day-to-day, as you just mentioned, but also the fact that such technology is actually supporting the human beings, because we all know what's happening in our industry. Judith mentioned about reopening, but obviously getting the staff in, people move around a lot more, competitive element of properties, groups competing for staffs and trying to shift and headhunting each other because there is a desperation to get the right staff levels, but technology is there to assist nowadays and fill those gaps. But the generation, I call it generation yesterday, not even Y, Z, X or anything, because I say this because I have an 18-year-old, so I call him my guest. When he wants something, he thinks that I've already ordered and Nike is delivering it or Apple is delivering it to the door already. And I think guests are becoming like that. When they send a message to Judith, they're already thinking, right, she knows I want that front row and so forth. Judith, in your day-to-day, and let's say you are facing possibly the busiest weekend of the year at the moment, except for Christmas in the UK, celebration all around and so on. And as well as communication from the guest, but how much communication level, how much pre-preparation have you done just to reach today? And I think a lot of our listeners don't understand that the concierges are planning possibly more forward ahead than anyone else in any department. We talked about chefs before in this show. In Easter, they're preparing Christmas. But a concierge, that is because my father, even today, even though he's retired, he's still doing his list, as Vicky knows, because she wants to go and rob him of his wine when she goes and visits him in Portugal. But basically, the pre-prep, he's going, right, I need to call this guy. This is happening. Wimbledon's a month away. He still thinks that way. He's always pre-preparing your day-to-day life. I would love for you to give you a little bit of an insight to our listeners. What kind of preparations do you go through? And just a little bit of a summary. I know with 50 minutes we got left may not be enough, but I think it'll be a pleasant surprise.
It's funny because people they come to the desk and they ask a question and they just think that it's popped just up in my mind like a Google like a Google person just like that. No, you're absolutely right. When I think that you live, especially in London, you live to those moments like you just mentioned as well. Okay, we're gonna have Wimbledon, big events and things that are happening. So what we do on a yearly basis is that every single month I have a complete date of what is happening where and which area, what's changing in that area, what is the obstruction going to be in that area. So When we then look at like quarters of the year, and we look at okay, now of course this is obviously very unique. This is a one in a lifetime sort of situation, right? The platinum jubilee. We already know since weeks what's happening in London, and that's not necessarily publicly known, but I need to know because I need to know that my guests, when they are coming to arrive, are they going to have issues coming in? Are they going to have maybe delays? Do we have to make sure that when they arrive that we have a few hours in between just in case? Where are they going to go for dinner? Is that going to be an issue? Which dinner reservation are the nicest? Are there packages? Is there going to be a street party? Is it going to be... So I look at different elements on every single event. And we do our weeks and weeks of preparation to get to that point. And people say, I'm coming to Wimbledon, I want to go to the finals. Fantastic. Okay, we need to get you the right place. We need to get you transportation. Where are you going to be stopping? What time are you going to leave? What time is the game? I already need to know that information before they even finish their question. And you can only do that, and obviously concierge goes by time, obviously, so more and more, the longer you do it, the more you know about it. And I have a very young, dynamic team, so we're constantly learning and reading into each other. So, for example, Christmas, we're already done. It's already in the done box. I already sort of know. The restaurants don't even know their menus, but I already know what I'm going to do with my guests in that case. So these are the things that you do constantly have to think about because you know your peak times. And if somebody comes onto the desk and they ask about art, you also kind of need to know what is the hottest art spot in the moment, what is sellable, what is not sellable. The Chelsea Flower Show, fantastic. Also a different sort of element of guests. So that's the other side of it. If a guest comes up and I want to go to the Chelsea Flower Show, and you look at the person, you're thinking, well, are you 100% sure? Do you want to go to a very nice bar? Because that's what I would be doing. You know what I mean? So there's elements that you just want to also understand if it's the right thing for them to do because they heard from somebody. You also want to ask the right questions to the guests, and that comes down to that. So I can do 100,000 part preparations, but first and foremost, my most important thing is that not only do I know what's happening in London, I also need to understand what the guest really, really wants, and do they know what they really, really want? So the questions that you ask beforehand, if they say, okay, I'll come into the Jubilee, perfect. What do you want to get out of this trip? Well, I would like to see the Queen. Fantastic. We'll get you to the right direction. We get you a guide. We get you into that point. But I don't want to see the crowds. Now we have a problem. So now you're going to start linking into, okay, are they going to be happy if they're going to be in that particular area? If they want to go to that restaurant? These are the elements that you also need to really, really understand and learn with the guests as well. Because sometimes they do throw you a nice little curveball and they say something to you like, oh my good God. And all my planning, I totally did not see that one coming. You also need to learn. So it's a constant learning curve. You constantly are like looking things up and using the social media as well, because, you know, influencers and stuff are actually super, super useful for our roles. We're learning so much from them as well. You're looking into these things and making sure that everything's okay. What is happening in London today? Something happened, perhaps? Is there some sort of demonstration that we need to be aware of? You're constantly on the live element, and every morning you restart your desk. What is happening today? Okay, guys, are we ready for this? Are we ready for that? Is this happening? What are the guests saying? Is there any delays on their arrivals? Should we already prepare them for that? So it's actually a constant motion. I always tell everyone, I walk in, and I have no clue what a day is going to bring. I know which guests I might be arriving, which guests we're going to say goodbye to, which guests have specific requests over the last couple of days, and we just want to make sure that they are okay and well. So we have lists and lists of that. But other than that, oh God, we don't know what's going to... I never know when my day ends either. But it is what it is. And I guess it's just a constant learning curve. But specifically around a big event that you know is going to draw most of your guests to the city, you just have to be really well organized and prepared. So we're starting also emailing with guests beforehand, and also on Instagram we are really making sure that we are alerting guests already in advance to say, hey, by the way, Platinum Jubilee, okay, we want more information, this is the email address, please ask the concierge before you travel. So it's actually a constant fun way of learning the city, relearning the city, you know, rediscovering elements. And on your days off, you never... And you know as well as I do, and Vicky, you know it as well, you'll probably never stop, but you're always a concierge no matter where you go. If I go for a fun night out with my friends, it's like, what is the cocktail? Do you have this by the bottle? You're always looking and always having a concierge head on. You don't let it go. You're 24/7. It's a whole different lifestyle where you're just constantly looking for the best, because at the end of the day, it's your guests that they're trusting you in knowing absolutely everything, or trying to know everything, or everything into the detail, and I can't fail them. And the only thing to do it is, well, I'm out and about because certain things you can't learn, certain things you have to experience, and that's what we do.
Absolutely.
Very much so.
That's
No, I
so
think-
My
funny
life.
to say that, Judith, because I hate to warn you, but if you ever decide to retire, once a concierge, always a concierge. It will follow you wherever you go in the world. To this day, Custódio and I have talked about this because we both have traveled quite a bit with work. And we will be in a whole new country, a whole new city, and somebody will come up to ask us for directions. And
That's true.
I help. That's the best part.
I think
I'm in
I couldn't.
the wrong place, but I'm going to help.
I think this is it. I think the adaptability of a concierge or the adaptability of an hospitality worker, anywhere you are possibly the worst hotel guest. And I say this person, hand on heart, because I'm a son of a concierge team member, food and beverage team member of my father's side, and the head housekeeper on the other side. So I check the corners of the bed and I check how I get welcomed. It's automatic as soon as I walk into anywhere. But I think there's an element of, especially to our listeners who are non-hospitality, is to showcase how hospitality workers never know. Our industry and our roles are so diverse on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis. As Judith mentioned, there's always a curveball. You know there's a curveball, but you never know where that curveball is coming from.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's from the little shy person who walks in and doesn't say anything and suddenly goes, bang. And sometimes you do know that there are the guests who will always have a couple of curveballs in their pockets to throw at you, and you get to know those guests. But we adapt in hospitality. It doesn't matter what's thrown at us, we make it happen. And I think that's one of the key things. Anyone listening, if you really want excitement, I think there's no better industry. And I've done a couple of career choices, very unique career choices that people have known me, but I think the concierge role for me is very key. On the back of that, Judith, we talked about your guest communication and how you do it. But I'm going to say this, and this is the world of the concierge that everyone wants to know about, but no one really knows how to ask about. And Vic and I've discussed this at length. Is how important is your network outside of your hotel to make things happen? Your communication, because you use communication on a literally a 360. I would say this. I think you're recently at an award ceremony with great friends of ours, with Barack and others. And I saw you guys enjoy yourselves on LinkedIn. I'm not going to comment where my invite was, Vicky, but we didn't get invited. I saw Judith enjoying it with a glass of champagne, but that's for after the show. We'll comment on that. But I think for those 5 minutes that you please that guest with that restaurant table, with that ticket for Wimbledon, the level of effort that a lot of people don't understand, not just the preparation, but your network. How important is it for your role? And you've grew within the role within the last 9 years. Many, many congratulations. I think you obviously, you know how much I think of your property, your role, everything you do. But for anyone who's thinking, right, I would love to be a concierge, I would love to join a concierge team, how important is for that person to understand that for you to get that queen result, let's put it that way, as we are in the Platinum Jubilee, that queen result, how important it is to have those foundations, those contacts around you, the guys, girls, the teams that you can just go pick up a phone, send a WhatsApp, whatever way you may be, send the chauffeur over to get that bouquet of flowers that Vicky always leaves somewhere when they give it to her and then send it to someone else. You know that as well. But all of those, how important it is to build those networks for your job and how fruitful they are anywhere in the world. Because I know you travel not just, I know you're Rosewood London, but I know you travel to your other properties as well. How important. And I think that'll be quite key for a communication level in itself.
Sure. It's everything. It is actually the key to literally everything. And I think in concierge world, in the society, and what you just also mentioned, in the society, we have a phrase that says, in service through friendship. And there is not one word light about that. And we're not making it more beautiful than it is. It is the pure essence and the core of what we do every day. If a guest wants something from the concierge, already, first and foremost, we never say no. We always say yes, we make it happen. And we can only make it happen through the others on the other side, because there is going to be somebody in that restaurant that is going to have to make it work for me as well for the guest, obviously, with that in mind. So it is so important that I can pick up the phone in Hong Kong and say, guys, we have this guest coming over. They need a seat here and there. Can you make it happen? And they are like, Judith, for you and your guests, everything. So it is so important. That's why we travel once a year to congresses, and we meet each other and we talk about each other's, about what's happening in their countries or on their desks. And obviously, when we were in Marrakesh 2 weeks ago, it was a very interesting subject about innovation and about recreating. And in the meantime, you connect with everyone because you have so many fruitful conversations. And now I have even more connections around the world because I know now who to pick up the phone to if somebody one of my guests wants to go to Hamburg. Or the other day I had a guest who wanted something specifically from Sweden. And I called the guys from Stockholm and be like, guys, can you send this over? Blah, blah. It's so incredible. Now I need to arrange a bouquet of flowers in the Netherlands, which of course I'm Dutch, shouldn't be too complicated, but it's very nice to know that you can pick somebody a phone up and just know that other person is going to be able, because we all have the same values and you want to make sure that the guest is going to be looked after. That is your absolute first and foremost. It doesn't really matter what we think about each other. It is literally about, okay, she has a mission, I can help her, I'm going to do that. And that is within the concierge world. And then obviously outside the world, so if I want a specific entrance for the VNA or for the O2, you find these people wherever I go. I will make sure I get connections. We have a business card in our hand. We want to get to know the other person, and we also want to do something for them. What I do as a concierge, I on a yearly basis hold a big party. For example, we're going to open up our terrace, and I have all my close connections of all those restaurants that we send our guests to, all the art facilities or all the members that we are dealing with mostly. I invite them over and just also get them all connected because it's so important that we stay together, and we're on hospitality. So it's all everybody feels for each other, everybody understands each other. So it is so important to keep those connections close, and not only within the concierges, but definitely outside of that. If people don't always understand it, but whatever phone call we pick up to, we know the other person on the other line, because we want to constantly keep a relationship going. And the amount of champagne bottles I send on a daily basis to say thank you that somebody made something happen, or I invite them over for dinner. We do so much for each other here, and to make each other's lives a little bit easier, and just to also make sure that our guests are being looked after, because everybody knows the Rosewood and they know that our guests are fantastic. Obviously, I can't say anything else. We have the best guest staff, to be honest. So basically the fact that, these guests will be looked after in that restaurant as well. And that's the best part. And guests come back, they're happy, and we say another thank you to our people on the other side. And without the connections, we really aren't truly, and I say it's like connections, friendships. Without our friendships, we really cannot be in the service that we're doing. And that's why we're always going to be here, because we will make things happen because we're all together in it.
I think, and before I ask Vicky for her closing comments, as we are coming to the half an hour point, the point you just stressed, I think for me, is one of the key points. Everyone talks about the communication with the guests, but that's impossible without the connections, without the network, without the support of everyone around. And when that support is there, doesn't matter anywhere, doesn't matter what culture, as you mentioned 4 continents there just in that short sentence. And that for me is key to see that. And I think anyone coming to hospitality needs to understand that, because that's our foundation. Anyone who grew up in this industry like the 3 of us, some younger than others, Vicky, we're the old ones here. I'm really sorry, it's me and you. Judith is the young one amongst us today. But I think it's that key of communication that makes the teams do anything, pull out the stops, no matter what day of the week, no matter how many jubilees or how many celebrations, the guest is the important, and that guest journey becomes enhanced by that network and support. Vicky, I'm going to leave the last comment to you before we close out for the day. First of all, I wanted to thank the 2 of you. I know you're very busy. Judith, I wish you an amazing weekend. If there's anything we can help with, let me know. As I said to you, I'm happy to cover some of the late shifts, and we swap what I'm doing next week. Always happy to get back. I still got my long tails and I used to be behind the desk, so I'm sure I'll try and fit them into them at the moment. But no, it's been a pleasure to connect today. Vicky, I'm going to say this to you. I want the last sentence on the human aspect. You touched on it earlier. Judith has touched on it as many times, is how important the communication that we have, the human aspect of the communication that we are delivering in hospitality.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was going to say, not everybody can be a hotelier. You can put somebody in a job, and you can give them the tools, such as a good technology tool, and that will help, especially in these trying times. But at the core, it's the love. And people have to have a passion to want to help others. And to me, that is the whole root of hospitality, isn't it? It's the love that you bring, and guests can feel that. They know when it's there and they know when it's not. So all the bells and whistles in the world, yes, they make a difference, but it has to come down to the human aspect.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the both of you. Revenue Hacks can be found in all of the podcast channels, Spotify, YouTube. We're trying to keep up with all the youngsters, as we said already as well. So you'll find us on Apple, Google, and podcasts. But what I really wanted to finish up today is have a brilliant Jubilee weekend for those in the UK. Have a brilliant weekend, everyone listening to us. Judith, Vicky, a true pleasure. Good to see friends, and hopefully we'll connect face to face. Champagne or no champagne or flowers, but definitely we'll be up in London soon. Thank you very much, everyone, for the show today. Wish you a good week.
Thank you. Thanks, Custódio. Thanks, Judith.
Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you.
My world will never ever leave you in doubt. I don't see what all the fuss is about. I didn't know I had to watch my tongue. Now you know that I'm a loaded gun. Yeah, you know it's true. I'm too taboo.